Hello, everyone, and welcome to the State College of Florida's Speaker Series. Today, we will be discussing mental health and self-care. My name is Matthew Moore, the Venice SGA President, and I have been given the privilege to introduce our speaker for today, Viata Munger. Viata has a master's degree in clinical psychology and is a licensed mental health counselor. She operates her own company at Ammonia Counseling, Coaching, Conflict Resolution, LLC, and has agreed to meet with us today to help discuss mental health and answer student questions. Viata also sees students via telehealth and does therapy online for better health. Viata, thank you for being here today.
Thank you for having me.
Viata, there's a lot to talk about when it comes to mental health, and we've asked our students to submit their biggest questions on the subject. I know I'm kind of rushing into it, but I want to get started. Our first question is, why is mental illness not as largely a discussed topic?
Well, thank you to the person who submitted the question. We appreciate you guys taking the time to submit the question, and we figure you have many questions at this time since life is very different right now, the way we're living it. And I think we're all doing a great job adapting and adjusting. And we all know that our mental health, perhaps things that we were dealing with have been exacerbated, and we are adapting and adjusting. So everybody, you're doing a great job. So why is mental illness or what was the question again, Matthew?
Why is mental illness not as largely a discussed topic? So mental health and mental illness, they all kind of fit within the same umbrella, I think.
Okay, so I mean, mental illness is a terminology that has a negative connotation, and mental health and mental well-being is more positively connotated, I would say. So to me, they're a bit different. So why is it not as largely discussed? Well, actually, again, thank you for submitting the question. I would say that this question has a few dimensions to it, not largely discussed by the people perhaps undergoing mental health issues, or not largely discussed by the powers to be who could provide services. For the powers to be who could provide services, I would say that we are talking about it more than ever. Actually, in August, I was part of a panel. It was a webinar that I participated in. And so this is since August, this is the second time that I am receiving a platform to speak about it. So I would say that we are talking about it. The field itself has received a lot of credibility over the years because social sciences were naturally behind natural sciences. So all that said, I would say we're in a better place than ever to talk about it. Now, people who are undergoing perhaps mental health difficulties, why are they not talking about it? So why do we not talk about things in general? We don't maybe mention something because we fear being judged. We don't talk about something because maybe we don't have the words to express it. We don't talk about something because we feel uncomfortable about it. We don't talk about something because we don't know what the consequence would be about talking about it. So there is that general stigma that's attached to mental health that I would say prevents people from talking about their mental health issues. So with us doing what we're doing today, with the webinar that I participated in August, and other people doing what they're doing, I would say we are removing the stigma little by little to allow people who are suffering to come forth and actually speak of what is going on with them, which will then encourage other people to come speak about what's going on with them. If we normalize it, the more we normalize it, the more people will not feel compelled to suffer alone. Right? So I would say, because of fear of judgment, because of the stigma, because of lack of words, because of lack of understanding, because of culture, we don't talk about it. Did I answer it?
I think you make a lot of great points about how we can address it in the long run. And I don't know exactly if that's the full story for the question. And so maybe I'm trying to look at a secondary dimension of maybe for the student that's suffering with a mental illness, they feel like nobody around them cares about the issue. What could they do today or this week to find the resources they need? Because they feel isolated and alone, is what it sounds like from the question.
Okay, so this student needs to know that there are services available to them, right?
Yeah.
Because maybe they're surrounded by people who don't understand them and are not able to pick up on the fact that they're having a difficult time. And then they don't feel comfortable saying, hey, I'm having a difficult time. But there are resources in place on this campus, at this school. And this is why we're doing this, I guess, so that people are aware that, hey, you can reach out. So you can reach out directly to me. Okay, so you can reach out directly to me. You can email me. You can call me. Or you can reach out to Student Support Services. Student Support Services has always provided counseling for students, even if it was not on campus previously, it was off campus, but we've always had counseling. And you have to know that the services are here for you to access it, right? So people around you are just like you, they don't know any better, but you have to know that there are resources to you available, and you have to, and that's the hardest thing. The hardest step to seeking therapy, I think, is that first appointment, you know, like pushing away, canceling all the negative thoughts, and actually just doing it. Access your self-efficacy, know that you show up for yourself and you help yourself. It's one of the best things that you can do, is show up for yourself and help yourself. But you have to know that there are resources. So you have to be willing to talk about it with somebody that you feel safe talking about it with. And that could be a teacher. It could be any staff member that you feel you have a good connection with. You know, if it's not your peers, because they don't know any better, right? They don't understand you. So if there is someone at the school, a teacher, normally, you know, we have a favorite teacher or something that we feel a bit closer to, ask them, talk to them, and then they will make a referral to Student Support Services that will come directly to me. Does that help? Is that a bit more?
I think that's great. I think in general, you fully fleshed out the question, and I hope that the students that are listening really take advantage of what's being discussed here today. I think we'll transition over to the next question, which is, how do we stop ourselves from overthinking?
We have to be aware first that we're overthinking. How do we become aware that we're overthinking?
Yeah, it's kind of like, I imagine the people who think they're overthinking have thought about it.
So what is overthinking? Overthinking would be, I mean, like, who says there is a ceiling to thinking, right? But perhaps like circular thinking is what we're talking about, where we're thinking and we're living in our head, and we're not actually getting to a resolution. We're not getting any more new ideas about whatever it is that we're thinking, and then it becomes unproductive thinking. So I would reframe overthinking to unproductive and circular thinking, maybe.
Okay.
And then it becomes very overwhelming, and then we lose track of perhaps what reality is, right? A little bit. So when you get to that point, or maybe before you get to that point, you can recognize that a thought is just that. A thought is just a thought. A thought is not reality. A thought is not your behavior. A thought is not your feeling. And guess who has control over your thought? You do. So you have to be aware of it. And then again, you have to have the self-efficacy. And it's great to, when are we overthinking? Do we overthink when we're surrounded by people, or do we overthink when we're alone?
I imagine that's different per person.
Yeah, so I would say probably most people overthink, to use the term from the question, when they're isolated, you know, because when you are surrounded by others who are interacting with you, you are doing on the outside externally, so you're not really living in your head, right? So overthinking is really like being very comfortable living in your head. And thinking is important, but if we're not getting any new ideas and we're not getting to a resolution, then perhaps it's time to check for evidence in reality for what we're thinking. So you have to be aware that, okay, I have passed the productive thinking phase, right? And now I am maybe ruminating. and I can't stop myself. What do you do? There is a technique that I use in therapy. Should I share it here? I guess I can share it here.
Love to hear it.
Okay, so when you're overthinking, when you're thinking circularly, you're ruminating, you're in your head, and you need to be in the present moment. When you're in your head, you're not really in the present moment. Life is passing you by in the present moment when you are living in your head. So remember that, you want to be a participant in life. So to bring yourself back and participate in life that's happening in the here and now, you can use all of your senses to bring you back to your physical moment. So you ground yourself. When you're in your head, you're kind of going out there. Bring yourself back and ground yourself. How do you do that? You use your senses. So you can name 5 things that you see, like out loud to yourself if you're alone, in your head. If there are other people around who will judge you for naming things that you're seeing, use your judgment. Name 5 things that you see, 4 things that you can actually touch, 3 things that you can hear, 2 things that you smell, 1 thing that you taste. If there's no taste, maybe have a sip of coffee or drink that's with you or something, taste something. You're stimulating your senses. You're grounding yourself in the present moment, okay? So that brings you from thinking to your physical present moment. It's a very effective technique. You can go further. What's that?
I was just saying, it's interesting. It's fascinating to hear about this. It's certainly new to me.
Yeah, so, if it happens, if you want to try to shift from living here into your physical present moment, you can try it. It's grounding. We use it also in trauma, it's grounding when you're have fear in your head. So you just kind of bring yourself back to reality where it's safe. That's when we use it oftentimes. Also, here's the thing. It will sound silly, but it works. Bring your thought to the tip of your nose. Bring your thought to the tip of your nose. So think of your tip of your nose, right? It actually clears your mind for a brief second. Right? It does, because you're thinking of the tip of your nose. Now that you're thinking of your tip of your nose, ground yourself even more in your present moment. Inhale, and you can do it with me, Matthew.
Yeah.
Inhale, feel the sensation of the air in your nostrils as you inhale. Sustain the oxygen in your brain. When you're ready, exhale slowly, push the air out. Make the exhale longer than the inhale. In through the nose and out through the nose. Push it out intentionally and make it longer than the inhale, which is a bit unnatural for us. That's not how we breathe normally. But when we exhale longer than we inhale, it activates the parasympathetic nervous system and we calm down. So if our circular and unproductive thinking got us agitated, it will also take care of that. So if we do 3 of those connected and well, it should help. So use your senses, bring your thought to your nose, and then breathe.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Love to hear about this. I think this is a great talking point to transition to the next question, which a student asks, what tips would you give for those who are struggling with low self-esteem and what they could do to improve that issue?
Thank you for the question. Well, that person is really, really suffering, right? That person is having a hard time. So what is self-esteem? Self-esteem is basically how much you like yourself and your opinion about yourself, a combination of those things, right? So where are you getting that? Where are you getting it? First of all, you have to understand where your thoughts about yourself, where is that coming from? And maybe it's time to reevaluate. Maybe it's because you didn't grow up in the most supportive environment. Maybe you grew up around only criticism, maybe criticism is what you remember from growing up. I'm not saying it was always that, you know what I mean? Maybe that was the most impactful. Maybe you weren't validated, you weren't taught, you weren't told that, you can do anything, so you didn't develop the confidence. Maybe you were bullied, because all of these, how you feel about yourself, and if it is so negative and so low, it's probably because of negative messages you have received along the way.
So you're saying we draw a lot of our self-esteem on other people's opinions? Yeah,
absolutely. Especially when we're younger, right? When we're children, everything that we are is just a reflection of how our parents see us. And then later it's how our friends see us. So it takes a while. We go through different developmental processes until we get to the point where it's like, okay, I understand that I am the core of me and I have my values, and I act on those values. When I achieve those values, happiness proceeds, but it takes a while to get there. And along the way, we can be fortunate and have a set of two loving parents who encourage us and support everything that we do. Or, we don't have that. And on top of that, if we don't have that, maybe we don't have the nicest people who raise us, right? Maybe we have great friends, or maybe we have bullies, all of those things. So you have to look back and see your life experiences that perhaps shaped your opinion of yourself, and it probably doesn't have anything to do with the person that you actually are.
I think that's a huge hill for a lot of people to overcome, but it's definitely worth addressing. Thank you.
Yeah. So you can engage in positive self-talk and rewrite your story. When you have low self-esteem, mostly the narrative has been created by other people. So you can take control and you can start rewriting your story, and you can start seeing yourself through your own eyes. And you can start seeing how good you are at things. If you're an SCF student, you were in school, you were doing something hard, you could choose not to be in school, but you're bettering yourself. You have a goal, you're thinking about your future already. Everybody who's in school already has so many good qualities, right? And this person who's not feeling so great about themselves, they're not seeing that about themselves. So you could start there, and then you could really personalize who you are. And you could truly be in touch with your values and what you like about yourself. It's very hard for people with low self-esteem issues to actually even tell you that, yeah, I like my hair. I think my hair is nice. It's like hard. It's very hard. You know what I mean? It's hard to receive compliments from people. So start accepting compliments. Someone says, hey, you look nice today. Instead of blocking it and saying no, say thank you. So start accepting compliments. Change your narrative and start writing your own narrative. See yourself through people who care about you, and then see yourself through your eyes. You can rewrite all of that, and you can take control, and you can start seeing who you are.
Awesome. Thank you very much. I think the next question I have really connects to that as well. And it's, what tips do you have to keep a positive mindset when you're feeling overwhelmed?
It would be difficult to be in a positive mindset when you're overwhelmed, right? So you have to acknowledge that you're overwhelmed and reduce that overwhelming feeling. Feel equanimity again. So use the techniques that we talked about earlier, and then engage in the positive self-talk. Perhaps engage in another activity that produces positive emotions in you. And organized. Oftentimes we feel overwhelmed because we're not adequately organized, and because we are seeing everything as this giant mountain that we can't overcome. So when we're feeling overwhelmed, perhaps we get organized, perhaps we break our tasks into smaller pieces, and maybe we rank them, we prioritize them, and we accept our limitations that, hey, I can't do everything all at once, and I can do little pieces of it. And we can be productive for 90 minutes and rest for 20 minutes. That's supposedly the ideal way of focusing. The ideal time and interval is you're productive and you work uninterrupted for 90 minutes, and then for 20 minutes you actually do nothing. I mean, your brain is not productive, so you can rest and then you can go back to it. So if you're feeling overwhelmed, look at what's in front of you. What are you facing? If it's breakable, break it down into smaller pieces and prioritize and tackle one piece at a time, and tell yourself you can't do everything at all at once, and that's okay.
I'm gonna try to combine two questions that I think they go together really well.
Okay.
And it's, what are some of your favorite forms of self-care, and what would some of the biggest hurdles that stop people from following through on self-care be?
Okay, so I'll answer it backwards. The second one.
However you want to handle it, yeah.
So I would say probably people just tell themselves they don't have enough time, right? I don't have time. There's plenty of time, actually. There is time if you actually have a schedule, even if it's a day planner, a week planner, a month planner, and you put the stuff that you absolutely must do, your mandatory events on there, and then you put the stuff that you need to do, otherwise there will be negative consequences like your homework and stuff. And then you start looking for blocks of time to engage in your self-care. And self-care can take 1 minute. Like I engage in self-care in between every session so that I can be my best for the next person. So what do? I engage in the mindful breathing process that I told you about, because I give myself loads and loads of oxygen and I feel like I renew a little bit for the next person, So I would say the hurdle that people come up with the most would probably be time, and maybe money, resources, but it depends. What do you consider self-care, right? Self-care would be attending to yourself, listening to your body, listening to yourself, and giving it what it needs. So self-care can be, as Matthew's favorites are, as I found out from our first meeting, is eating well, exercising, and sleeping well, right?
Yeah, very important.
Yes, absolutely. So beyond that, what can we do? We can also perhaps set boundaries. Self-care could come in the form of boundaries. We are asked to do stuff and we like to please people and we like to make a difference. So we say yes to everything that comes our way and then we feel overwhelmed, our previous question, right? So maybe self-care can come in the form of learning to say no, I'm sorry, I can't do this right now because I am otherwise occupied, right? So self-care can be like different forms of things for different people at different times, but you surely have time in the day, in the week to take care of yourself. Some of my favorite forms of self-care. So like I said, throughout the day, I engage in mindful breathing periodically in between students sessions. I go outside and I breathe fresh air. Sometimes I touch leaves on trees, just to be connected with nature, because connected with nature is great. The connection with nature replenishes us so much. Like if you can take your shoes off and walk on the grass, that would be great. And when I go home, so this morning, I did like a 20-minute workout before I started my day. When I go home, I don't have class today, so I will actually work out a little bit more because I have a lot of studying and stuff to do. And I feel like when I work out, my brain is like rejuvenated and I can focus and everything, So I do yoga and I work out and I love to laugh and I play with my dogs. And I hang out with people who care about me, whom I care about. But sometimes self-care just really can mean just being by yourself, because when we're around other people, we tend to give to other people, especially if that's our natural tendency. So it's okay to have time to yourself and be your best friend. Don't terrorize yourself with your thoughts and just be there with yourself and be okay. That could be self-care too.
Thank you. I think a lot of detailed answers, really appreciated. I think it's really important that we take the time to, recognize that even if it's just 5 minutes, I think that's a great point you make, that even if it's just 5 minutes, we really can set that time aside to focus on ourselves and help maintain a healthy lifestyle. Mm-hmm. We only have one more question. Mm-hmm. And so I'm going to read it. It's, what would your advice be to someone who is in a household that doesn't acknowledge mental illness?
So I would imagine you would feel very alone if you were the only one of that opinion. And if you tried to take them on and try to change them in their opinion, it would feel like you are that pebble and the wave is coming at you and you, the pebble, can't do much against the wave. So...
Well, there might even be self-doubt, are they right? And then, I mean, they're not, obviously they're not right, but I'm saying that if you're around people that tell you, force their opinions down your throat like that, I imagine that's really difficult to overcome if you're struggling with mental illness of some sort.
Absolutely. So even if they are the people that and are closest to, it doesn't mean that what they're saying is true. So you have to kind of know your truth, and you have to kind of follow your intuition on what is going on with you. Ultimately, you are the expert on you. Even when you come into my office, you are still the expert on you, not me. So your family is not the expert on you. If you feel there's something going on with you, if your family is not where you go, your household is not where you go to get the support, there are professional support sources available to you. If you are an SCF student watching this, I am one of those for you. And you come to me, like we said earlier, through student support services. You follow your gut. What you don't do, for sure, is suppress what is going on with you.
I think that's very important to talk about.
Okay.
Just to expand on it a little bit, what would you say about like maintaining those relationships with family? Because we still care about our family, even if we have our differences, and even if they have an issue that they need to overcome that we may not be able to change, that doesn't mean we don't want to have a happy, healthy relationship with them.
Absolutely. So there is the other part of, so you're not going to fight that wave, right? But you're going to accept the wave. So you will accept them for who they are. And education does help, but perhaps they can't hear it from you. Perhaps they will not hear it from you, but perhaps if they run into that piece of information and education somewhere else through perhaps people who are like-minded, who used to be like-minded with them and now change their mind, they would be more likely to receive the information openly from them, but not from you. So you are not trying to change anybody. You're just trying to take care of yourself. You're not trying to sever your relationships because these people still care about you. So they support you in the way that they can. They have a certain limit and capacity in their support, and you accept that. And then you go elsewhere for the support that they can't give you. And it doesn't mean that you break off your relationship with them. So accepting people for who they are, if we could all do that, there would be no conflict, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's difficult when it's our own household and we want to be understood. We don't want to feel like we're the only one feeling a certain way. We want to be understood. It's very isolating when that doesn't happen. So it would be very important to process the conflicting feelings you have. The people in your household, you love them, but at the same time right now you're angry with them because they don't understand you, and all of those feelings are okay.
Thank you.
Does that help?
Talking about it. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's all the questions we have, but I want to give you an opportunity. If there's anything else you feel like we should have touched on or we missed, I don't want us forgetting an important topic to mean that we don't talk about it. If there's something that, maybe something about the coronavirus, because a lot of people have felt like they're trapped inside and the normal ways they manage their self-care might be interrupted or something. Whatever you think is an important discussion that maybe we just missed. Really appreciate.
Yeah, I guess it's probably timely to speak of how everyone's life has changed. And yeah, self-care has been affected. A lot of people have not been able to go to the gym. But like I said, a lot of people also adapted, and downloaded apps and started taking walks and running around their block. And so I want to touch on resilience, because I think resilience is what we need to remember. I think we need to remember that we are all resilient, and the more self-care we engage in, the more we increase our capacity to be resilient. Resilience is not this like superhuman quality that only some special people have. We all have it, and we can develop more and more of it as we take more and more care of ourselves. So no matter what happens, because life is never, we have periods, we have phases of good times, but there's always a complication. So how do we handle it? How do we handle the coronavirus, grief, stress, loss of a job, failing a class, breakup in a relationship? How do we deal with all of those things? Because they're all part of life. We allow ourselves our feelings. We get support. We talk to people who care about us. We talk to a therapist if we want to. We allow ourselves our feelings. We talk, we get support. We don't isolate. We take care of ourselves. We engage in things that make us feel better. We engage in activities that promote positive emotions. And that way, we don't bounce back, we bounce forward, and bouncing forward is resilience. So I want everybody to remember that you are all resilient.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I'm sure there's a lot of people here that learned a lot from this. I know I learned a lot from this discussion. It was a pleasure to have you. Really appreciate you being here with us and all the work that you do. I think it's pretty clear that mental health is an important issue, and it's a pleasure to hear from you on the subject.
Thank you, Matthew. It was my pleasure.